I would like to welcome the first speaker, Sandra, and we can give her a warm round of applause as well.
Thank you. Can I find my own introduction? Because for those who don't know us, there was this accelerator, Baltic Sandbox in Lithuania, still is. But it's like our daughter accelerator, and we are connected, but the fund is called BSV Ventures, and Baltic Sandbox Accelerator is still there, so hence the mix-up all the time. So my name is Sandra, I'm a general partner at BSV Ventures. We invest in early-stage life sciences, deep tech, and dual-use startups across the region, mostly in Baltics and Nordics, although we have a couple of investments like in general in Europe, the Netherlands, and France. I'm also wearing a second hat as a LatBAN board member, so I do the angel trainings practically all the time, and as a fund we're also a member of SBAN and FIBAN. So basically, and in LatBAN my role is trying to do the cross-border syndicates and putting angels together. So the funds, the accelerator, because we mentioned it already, so it was founded in 2018. Since then, we had like several programs. We invested in startups through angel syndicates. We launched the fund in 2 years ago, I guess. We're now on our third year cycle of investments, and we have 40-something, I think, already, because it's a little bit outdated presentation, portfolio companies in pre-seed, and 14 portfolio companies in seed. And in very many cases, we co-invest with angel investors. I think approximately 70% of our portfolio companies are co-investments with angels and other funds. So quick recap about the difference in the models between the angels, venture funds, and private equity. Because sometimes angels just don't understand the fund mathematics, how it works and why the funds are doing the due diligence in a certain way. By the way, talking about the presentation today, I prefer not to call it due diligence. I prefer to call it due diligence and risk assessment or a startup assessment, because those are like kind of interconnected things. So if we are looking at the angels are making decisions based on their personal preferences because they invest their personal funds. The angels are flexible in terms of their thesis. I mean, you can say that you're an angel who is investing in fintech, but if tomorrow you decide to invest in medtech, no one will say you something. I mean, it's up to you. Angel investment period is sort of evergreen. Again, it's up to you. You want to invest today. You don't want, you don't invest for the next 2 years or something like this. And angels can actually prefer both models, either equity, where you sell the equity and you get your exit your money back, or dividends, because angels invest both in startups and traditional businesses. With the venture funds, it's a little bit different. And when for example, you're bringing the startup to the venture fund and you want this venture fund to invest in the startup, or you want to co-invest with the funds, what you should know is, first of all, every fund has a thesis. And we can operate within our thesis, but we can't operate outside of our thesis. Meaning, for example, if we tell our LPs, and we are like startups, right? We raise money, we invest money, and then we raise money again for the next funds. So when we tell our LPs, our investors, that we are planning to invest, for example, in Baltics and Nordics, we are planning to invest the tickets from like 200 to 500 in certain types of startups. And when we put it in the limited partnership agreement in the LPA, we can't change it. We can't make a decision, to invest 1 million or to invest outside of, let's say, if we say that we invest in defense, to suddenly start investing in fintech or something like this. So we are not very much flexible here. Secondly, our investment period is also fixed. So we invest like from 3 to 4 years, and then we raise another fund. Meaning, for example, that if we're at the end of investment period, we normally don't have money to do the new deals. And it's important for angels to understand when you co-invest with the funds and look at their due diligence. And also, what is the main difference and how our exit model is going to look like, I'm going to show you at the next slide. We can do dividends. It's not the model that works for us. So if the startup is, not really growing, but somehow being profitable and so on, if we can't exit, if we can't sell the startup is no use for us. So for you, it's a risk mitigation. For us, it's a total write-off. And there are also private equity and family offices. They can actually do both. They can invest in venture, they can invest in whatnot, stock markets, the way they choose to invest, basically. In most of the cases, they're evergreen, especially, for example, if it's a family office of one family, and they can do dividends or equity. So they are sort of similar to angels when it comes to the investments. So why can't we be happy with the dividends? Are we just, greedy bastards or something like this? Let's look at the venture fund model of the regular tech or generalist VC funds. Let's say we have a fund size of 50 million that we raised and that we are planning to invest. Someone is worried about this model. Our investable capital is 40 million because 10 million goes into the basically management fees. And if you can say, oh, 10 million, like it's a lot, what do you do with this money? Well, it's 10 years. It's lawyers, audit, and everything. You don't want to know. I mean, the rumors about fund managers being happy with their management fee are kind of overrated. So let's say we do 1 million per startup, we do 30 investments, and we do follow-ons. Our equity target is from 10 to 15% at the start. And then when we do follow-ons, for example, we do pro rata, we can, in some cases, keep something like 7% when we are going to be exiting. Let's say we told our LPs that we are going to make them 3x returns. In reality, we need to make way more returns because we only make returns on the investable capital. We don't make returns on the management fee. So it's approximately 375. Also, we get our carry because we don't work for the management fee, we work for the carry. So investors also get less than X3 because we take our part from it. And let's say after 10 years, we have 3 exits. And the normal Pareto rule in VC exit is 10%. So let's say we are super lucky VC and we have 3 startups that we exited from with some reasonable amount of money. And let's say one of them became unicorns and 2 or half unicorns. So even if we did this, and we are being diluted in all of those cases, if we are doing this, we won't even get X3. And all the other startups are write-off. And this is a very common picture for the generalist VCs, and not just this. Normally, generalist VCs don't even have the unicorn in their portfolio because you can compare the number of the VCs in the world to the number of the unicorns in the world. And you can figure out if some funds are having 10 unicorns, it means that some of the funds never had a unicorn. So this is the VC model problem, and that's why we can't do dividends. It just doesn't work. I mean, we need a sizable exit, and we also need the exit in the situation when 90% of the portfolio is going to be dead. When I say we, I mean VCs in general, because for the specialist VCs, it works differently. We can talk about it during the break, because otherwise it's going to be the whole lecture about it. So when it comes to assessment, risk assessment, and how venture funds are doing their due diligence, this is not the full list. This is the kinda okay-ish list we can go with when we do the assessment. These are 10 parameters that we are looking at when we are assessing each startup. And each parameter, for example, technical feasibility, has a lot of questions. The question is, as an angel investor, you probably can't do it. It's impossible. I mean, unless you are like a physicist and you're investing in a specific startup in your field, then you can do this due diligence. As a regular angel, looking at all these things, you understand that only one parameter is going to take you several weeks and probably even several people to hire to look at these things. Also, why venture funds in that case beats kind of the angels when it comes to the assessment. Because what's in red is what venture funds do and what angels can't do. What's in green, these are the problems that can be technically solved by the business angel network. So if this is the process of the venture fund, of the assessments and looking at the pipeline and the whole due diligence process, First of all, where is the problem for angels? Legal due diligence. It's expensive. And we have some lawyers here who might say that it's not expensive. But in reality, especially if you do the legal due diligence in the other country, we just had a deal in Sweden that we finished 3 weeks ago. You don't want to know, like 15K, like this, Swedish legal. Another Czech fund is invested in one of portfolio startups of ours. They hired the portfolio startup is in Lithuania. They hired the Lithuanian law firm for the legal due diligence, 13K. So it's something that angels normally can't afford because it's the size of their ticket. So what do you do, for example, with the legal due diligence here? You are joining the syndicate. Either you are co-investing with some business angel network as a part of the syndicate, or you are co-investing with the funds. And this way, you don't need to do the LDD. Someone else is doing the LDD. You just need to look through it. Startup assessment process. Why the initial startup assessment process is pretty time-consuming. Imagine you have, I don't know, you put on your LinkedIn that you're an angel investor and you're investing in startups, and then you have like 100 decks flowing into your like personal messages in 1 month. Unless being an angel is your full-time job, it's nearly impossible to do the proper assessment of each deck. And proper assessment is just not looking at the deck, especially in deep tech. Ideally, you talk to the founders. Also time-consuming. Can be solved by the business angel network because normally when you have the pitches at the business angel network, they do preliminary assessment of those startups that they do even make sense. Also, the whole decision-making framework. Normally you are making decisions alone as an angel or as the part of the syndicate, and I'll show you what to look at when you're making decision. What you won't be to do as a standalone angel is this, scientific or technical due diligence. Not only because it's expensive, because unless you are like a PhD in physics and you have the network of like physics professors and you are investing in specific startups like this, you just don't have a network to do this. And you also need to not just bring these people to this network, but also pay these people. Legal due diligence, also expensive, and paperwork. Because you need to have the proper investment agreements, the proper shareholders agreements and everything. The lawyers are going to talk about it. Also quite an expensive thing. So, but as an angel, because then you will ask a question, okay, I'm an angel, I have a like 5K ticket or something. Why would any fund bother to co-invest with me? First of all, when we invest outside of our areas of presence, let's say, so we are based in Vilnius, Tallinn, and Helsinki. If we, for example, would invest in Riga, we would need someone local to look after the startup. It's the same way as like bigger funds from other regions are co-investing with us, for example, in Lithuania or Helsinki, because we have the local presence, we know the local ecosystem. And they might not need us because we are a pre-seed fund, like with the smaller tickets, but they would want us because they want someone to look after the startup and also to tell us certain things about the local ecosystem. So your knowledge of the local ecosystem gives you the leverage and gives you the way into the deals. If you have a unique domain expertise, technical expertise, industrial expertise, it's a huge plus for the fund, especially, for example, for the generalist funds, when they don't have expertise in like certain areas. Personal relationship with the founders, the killer thing. I mean, if the founders want to invest in will come to me and said like, but we want this angel because like, and we want this angel as our like board member or something like this. Normally we wouldn't say no because really this investor has some relationship with these founders. Also, your previous experience, your unique network is important if you're investing in fintech, for example, and you're ex-regulator or like ex-banker who works there for the last 20 years and you have the network. No one is going to say no to you. Because yes, of course, we need such angels who have this expertise. Competence in the board also works, especially, for example, in the Nordics, when we need to put the board together, like officially, and apart from the investors who are taking the board seats, we also want some independent board members with certain competences. money leverage when you are an angel syndicate, and if there is an early stage VC, sometimes angel syndicates, if you are like, for example, LatBAN syndicate, and you put together like 300K, and like the early stage VC is investing like 150, you actually have the financial leverage here. If you have a network for the future funding rounds, because future funding rounds are important for the startups, like both regular tech and deep tech. And also sometimes you can be the angel who is an LP in the funds. And even if you invested in the funds and you want to go and co-invest in some deals that this fund is making, if it's allowed with the LPA, believe me, no fund manager is going to say no to their LP. Like, of course, please, any deal. What you need to do in this situation, if you're co-investing with venture funds, and if the venture funds are doing this work for you, on the technical due diligence and scientific due diligence, is the due diligence on the funds, not the founders. You need to trust the lead investor in the deal. And this is how you are looking at the process. So first of all, the source of money. If the fund has European money such as EIF, EIB, NIF, and things around that, like institutional European money, you don't have to worry about the due diligence, because you can't imagine the due diligence that they went through and how long it took. So if you see something like this, yes, we have EIF money, yes, we have EIB money, European Investment Bank, fine, great. If it's the money of the national promotional bank or a national institutional investor, it might be different, because it very much depends on the country. In our case, we had a situation when there was one fund from Hungary, I think, Balkans. And we were looking into their LPs. And they said, like, no, like, we have money from the Hungarian, like, national bank or something like this. We are, like, super great. And we are like, well, for some reason, we don't trust Hungarian National Bank. And we decided to look there. And, of course, we were right not to trust them, because we found the investor who laundered some Russian money through London. And it was pretty obvious. And when we asked this fund a question, we said, like, look, what about, like, this and this LP? They said, like, we are not going to show you our LPs, and, like, we don't care. So you don't want to get into a situation like this. If you're investing in regular tech, it might fly. If you're investing in deep tech and, God forbid, dual use, you need to do a proper due diligence on the source of money, ideally always. Partner expertise. Look at the partners in the fund, look where they're coming from, like what they're doing and everything. It's not about like the fund manager is being stupid or something. It's about the match of the expertise and the thesis of the funds. What do I mean by this? If, for example, you're looking at the fund that is investing in very early stage, like pre-seed and like early seed, for example, the partners that you want in this fund, they should be operators. They should be ex-founders. Because at the very early stage, you need to work with those founders. And if you had 20 years of experience of investment banking, you can't work with the founders, because all you see is a spreadsheet. You don't have the competences of helping to build the early stage teams. So look at the expertise match this one. Secondly, defense, I know that everyone is interested in this topic. If you see, for example, a defense fund where like the partners are ex-military, you can say, oh, this is great, they are ex-military. It's not great, because yes, they might have one partner who is ex-military, but ideally advisors who are ex or like current military. But the people, the expertise that they need to have in the fund is investment expertise. Military expertise, and the venture fund is going to do you nothing. So also when, for example, the fund is claiming that they're like a deep tech fund or life sciences, look at this type of expertise on the partner level or on the team. So you need to assess this, and you need to understand, okay, do these people actually understand what they're doing? Because I have seen several early stage funds, I think like first and the second funds, when all the partners are coming from investment banking and like consulting backgrounds. If you never was a startup founder and you are trying to do something with the very early stage startup founders and to be their first ticket, highly likely you won't even understand the challenges that they're facing. So if you are seeing this, probably you shouldn't co-invest with them. Also, look at their previous investments and try to understand how much they fit their thesis and how much kind of are they like versatile? Are they like, do they actually understand what they're doing? Because normally the fund managers, they have a pretty narrow expertise. We can't know anything. I mean, we can, yes, invest like in deep tech life sciences or like regular tech marketplaces, B2B SaaS and something. But normally the fund is specializing in something. You, for example, only invest in B2B SaaS, or you only invest in consumer, or you only invest in this. If the fund is all over the place, probably they're just, the type of the fund that has a lot of hype, like, oh, let's invest in this, let's invest in this. So look at this and try to figure out the profile from the investments they previously made. Specialist funds. Specialist funds are the funds that are like specializing in energy, medtech, biotech, life sciences, deep tech, defense, something. Look at their co-investors. Because what's important if you, like the deals they made and who co-invested with them. Because if you see specialized funds co-investing with them in certain deals, you will understand, okay, especially established funds, like not the first-time fund managers, like third-time fund managers and so on. It means that they actually do have the expertise, other funds of this caliber that trust them. So this is also important to figure this out. Call the founders, ask them about the relationship with the funds. Because on the surface, the fund might look kind of okay, but it might be the case that the founders actually hate the fund managers. We had a story when we invested in the company, and there was the previous fund that invested in them before us. And the fund managers claim that they kind of help founders or something like this. Not only they don't help founders, they're actually pretty hostile. And they also have like 60% of the governmental money in their funds. And if you would ask the founders, like, are you happy with these guys, and can you actually work with this fund? Our founders said that if we would have known, we would have never taken their money. We would have died but not taken their money. So make sure that they also have good relationship with the founders, because this is the indication of the relationship the fund is going to have with you. And this is the indication of what is going to be happening on the board meetings, for example. Because normally, as an angel, you don't get to the board unless founders nominate you, or unless you are the part of the syndicate and you are the leading angel and you are representing the syndicate and they put you on the board. And sometimes the board can actually kill the startup. I've been in the board meeting where the fund manager once told that we need to replace the CEO because she thinks so, because she thinks that the current CEO is not good enough. And that's her opinion. What was great, she didn't have the majority on the board. So we kind of said like, no, we are not doing this. But sometimes fund managers can behave like this. And you need to avoid this because that's the risk for you as an angel investor. Co-investor relationship. Check this, it's very important because sometimes I hear the horror stories about how the funds threw out angels of the deal, from the deal, how the funds took the deal from the angels and like didn't give them an opportunity to invest and so on and so forth. The industry is tiny. I mean, like if we would be looking at the Finland plus Baltics, like how many venture funds do we have? Like 50? Basically, everyone knows everyone. So if something like this is happening, people will know. Talk to other angels or other co-investors. What do you think about this fund? Do they do any harm to angels? Are they trying to somehow limit the angels' rights or something like this? That is the part of the due diligence that you will know easily. And also, if the fund has a network to fund the founders in the future rounds. Because what is happening on the early stage market, and basically the more the industrial shift is happening in Europe and with the regular tech or general tech investors, the more you will see this on the market. That's some startup founders got the money at the pre-seed or seed, and that's it. Because the fund doesn't have the network and they can't bring some investors to, for example, do the bridge round or do Series A. The founders, for some reason, are incapable of raising this money. And to be honest, when it comes to founders raising the money, it's probably 10% what matters is founders' effort, And 90% what matters is investor network. Because the way how founders are raising the bridge round and the next round is not only like the founders are putting their effort, but investors picking up the phone and calling the friendly funds and saying like, look, we're putting together some bridge round. Do you want to participate? We have an allocation of like 400K. Come on, it's going to be fun. Like, this is your thesis, look at this. We did the technical due diligence. This is your thesis, look at these guys. They're doing this and that. So this is how you put the rounds together. If these investors, they do have this network, then their founders are going to be fine. If they don't, then highly likely most of their founders are not going to raise money at the next round, especially in regular tech, especially in this region. I don't know. Well, okay. The second part is the risk assessment framework for the angels. So the venture fund might be using some very complex frameworks, but if, as an angel, you need to do the startup due diligence and risk assessment, because it's like both in one, except for the legal due diligence, you can use this framework, and it will help you a lot. And it's pretty simple to use, like comparing to this crazy one that I showed you. So what's risk assessment? Basically, it covers 7 risks. And these risks are all the part of your due diligence on the startup. Each risk has a certain translation. So each risk means that you're asking a certain question. So technical risk means the product that is not possible to build. Market risk is that the customers will not want the products. Yeah.
How do you assess that the product isn't possible to build?
I have a next slide about it. So market risk is that the customers will not want the product. Team risk is about incompetence, because, for example, if you are looking at some, founders having a conflict or something else, it's not a team risk; it's a legal risk. Because if you're covered in terms of shareholders' agreements and everything, then the founder's conflict is like solvable, at least from the legal perspective. But bad teamwork and incompetence, something what is happening like on the level where you have no leverage from the legal perspective, is the team risk. Financing risk is no financing on the market, and we are talking both about equity financing and non-dilutive financing. Regulatory risk is for the regulated industries only. Competition risk is the space on the market, and IP risk is IP risk. How do you use the framework? And then we are going to go through each parameter. So you do normally the assessment from -2 to +2. So -2, the risk almost doesn't exist. +2, the risk is very high. The risk is going to kill the startup. You can go like -2, -1, 0, +1, +2. When we do the risk assessment framework on the quarterly basis with the team, we sometimes go to like some shit like 0.35 or something, but you don't need to do this. Also, what you can do, you can assign the different weights for the parameters. Why would you do that? Just because if you are looking at the general tech startup, for example, another, I don't know, marketplace, technical risk doesn't matter. I mean, with the vibe coding and everything, everyone can build a shitty marketplace. So there is no technical risk, but the market risk is huge. So, for example, when you're assessing the technical risk and you will say that the technical risk is -2, you can also, add the multiplier to this risk and say like, okay, technical risk doesn't matter. So in all the calculation, it's going to be 0.5. But the market risk is huge. And I'm multiplying this market risk by 2, because this is one of the parameters that matters most. And you can use these different multipliers with all of the parameters. So what you want to get at the end? At the end, you want to invest in startups with the score that are more than -4. -6 look really good. -2, you need to kind of probably fix something. Everything that in the plus, we normally do the color coding internally. We just we use the whiteboard, and we just use like green marker for the minus, red marker for the plus. So everything that is in the red, we just don't touch it. And also, sometimes, because you're like, as angels, we all have, kind of cognitive biases, because we're all human, and especially when you're making decisions about like your own money and investing like in your own preferences, and you are not binded by any agreements where to invest, where not to invest. And also, apart from this, you don't have like 4 more partners you need to fight with about your investments. I mean, like other partners in the funds, you can be making some biased decisions. Like it can be emotional reasoning, it can be whatever. So to avoid this, compare several startups to each other. They might be from different industries. It doesn't matter. You will catch the moment of the bias when you will, okay, if I'm assessing the market of this startup like this, why am I assessing the market of like a different startup differently? I should be probably looking at them equally. So if you, for example, compare like 10 startups in a row, you'll quickly see like where you have some problems with the biased reasoning. Technical risks. Now we are going finally through the risks. Technical risks means that the product is not regular tech, and I forgot what I wrote on the slide. So what is important to understand that there are regular tech startups, B2B SaaS, I don't know, Spotify, things like this, marketplaces, whatnot, Uber, Bolt, whatever. And there are deep tech startups. When we are talking deep tech, because now everyone and their dog is deep tech and also defense. So when we are talking about deep tech, think scientific deep tech. Think about something that is the whole value, where the whole value is built on the scientific or engineering breakthrough. If that's the component of the startup, the key component, then it's deep tech. If it's not, treat it like regular tech, and that's it. Hardware is not deep tech. Hardware can be deep tech, can be not deep tech. So if the startup is hardware, it doesn't necessarily need to be deep tech. If the startup is biotech, they might not necessarily be deep tech. Again, some breakthrough that is potentially patentable, that is changing the market, that helps to do things faster, cheaper, better on the market, so the market shift, the market innovation. This is deep tech. So if you are looking at the regular tech startups, marketplaces and so on, technical risk is almost non-existent. I mean, like if these guys can't even build their B2B SaaS, well, I mean, you just invested in the wrong people. But other than that, you don't need to be super smart to build like this B2B SaaS app. So the technical risk is not there. However, the risks that are involved, market risk, huge, one of the biggest ones, especially at the certain markets. And especially in the scenario of the AI wrappers. What I mean by the AI wrapper, that's if you have noticed over the last 24 months, the shift in the market that is caused by the LLMs and agents and the products, so to say AI. What is happening? A lot of products that were established in the market and a lot of services, they are losing their value and they are losing their users. Because if 36, let's say, months ago, your primarily window to do certain things was an app, so you had like basically an app mindset. Okay, if I want to kind of check if I'm writing something correctly, I'm using Grammarly. If I want to, for example, log in my weight and like how much water I'm drinking, I'm using this and that app. Now, your primarily source to do things like this is ChatGPT or whatnot you're using. The market is shifting in that sense. And one of the problems that the market is shifting is, first of all, that you don't need much time to shift from one app to another in B2C. And also, if we would be looking at the cycles in B2B, the recent research, I think the data is from the first quarter of 2025, if the time for the switching from one software to another in B2B was 12 to 18 months at the beginning of 2015 to 2016, and now it's 3 to 6 months. And we are talking B2B and enterprise software, which means that the cost of change and the cost of shift has significantly go down. And how does it affect the markets? It's basically like every new person who is coming with the B2B SaaS software, they can get the clients easily, but they can also lose the clients easily. So the market is like pretty crazy in that sense. Team risk and competence about teamwork. Of course, every team. Financing risk, no financing on the market. It's higher for the regular tech now than for the deep tech and all the types of specialized tech. The reason being non-dilutive financing. So for example, if 5 years ago we would be looking at the deep tech market, we would understand that, okay, there are like 3 deep tech investors in the region, and that's it. If they don't raise money from these investors, they don't have any other fundraising options. Now when we are looking at the deep tech market, we understand like, okay, if they don't raise money from this 10 deep tech investors in the region, there is also millions in non-dilutive financing. They should be pretty fine. So the financing risk for specialized startups is going down. Regulatory risk, unless it's fintech in the domain of the regular tech startup doesn't exist. I mean, like what is regulated? Marketplace, B2B SaaS? No, not really. Competition risk is there. IP risk is almost non-existent. But this is how the deep tech main risks are going to look like. Technical and scientific risk is huge, and the more complex is the system that they're building, and when I say system, it doesn't mean like software, hardware, whatever, like life sciences. The more complex thing, and the more potential is in this market breakthrough, the higher are the risks. However, what's interesting, market risk is not that significant. Why the market risk is not that significant? Because if they're building something on the market that actually makes sense, think cancer treatment. The market for the cancer treatment is there. There is no situation that the market doesn't want the product. Yes, they want the product. Someone has to treat cancer. So in many cases, the scientific deep tech doesn't really have a huge market risk. It's more about the market size, which might not be enough, but it's not that the market won't want the product. Team risk is still there, but what's interesting about team risk, about the competence and the lack of the competences? When we are talking about the team risk in the regular tech markets, we are talking about the soft skills, so to say, because the people that we need to make sure that they can do certain things are like business developers or marketers, because regular tech is essentially the competition of the marketing budgets. When we are looking at, at the deep tech risks, our key competences in this situation are scientists and engineers at the early stage. And after this, everyone else, like business developers, whatnot. And when it comes to scientists and engineers, it's hard skills, it's easier to assess. Why is it easier to assess? Because if the person had worked as a marketer for like 20 years, I'm not sure if he's a good marketer or a bad marketer. You know, he worked for some big companies, he worked for some small companies, but I don't know how this person is going to work out in this specific startup setting. But if the person has worked, has been like a PhD and a professor in cancer treatment for like 20 years, and they were doing something with metastasis and something like this, and this person has numerous amount of publications and something else, well, highly likely this person understands what he is doing when it comes to the research, because the scientific and engineering competences, they can be proven in a certain way. Although sometimes, and we have 3, I think, startups like this in our portfolio, we have some startups where we have like 10 team members, 10 PhDs like this. And at the same time, we have 3 startups where the guys practically build the thing in the garage. And one of the people in the team isn't like an engineering dropout. So these things also happen, but they happen more rare, and you're taking more risks when you're investing in a scientific startup like this.
Actually, a question about what you just said. For example, the startup that has like 10 PhDs in the team. a lot of times I suppose there's this perception that these people might lack like the business side of skills.
A lot of times they do.
So how do you kind of assess that in the same sense of it?
Do we have, can we do another workshop on deep tech and life sciences? Well, in general, it's not the main problem. So if we're looking, first of all, we're investing in the products that are 3 years time to market. And secondly, normally when we invest in very, very specific type of founders, scientific founders, it's not a piece of cake, to be honest. And also you have all the problems with the technology transfer from the university. So it's a hard game. Like normally you don't want to go there. But if those founders already decided that they start to play like venture game, they start understanding that they're lacking business competences. And in this situation, you can do 3 things. Sometimes in certain industries, but it only refers to 2 specific industries, life sciences, normally in health tech, like cancer treatment or something like this, and meal tech and dual use. The engineering or scientific founders are becoming the best business development people. And it's not about, them having like certain traits of character or something. It's about the situation when a person needs to talk to a pharma company, and pharma doesn't speak like, the normal language. They speak like pharma and life sciences language. And the person who would be able to talk to them best, especially if we're talking about like experimental cancer treatment and they're licensing certain methodology or approach to the pharma company. It's going to be like people who understand science speaking to people who understand science. And we've seen it like with a lot of portfolio companies on the market. Same when it comes to defense. What we've seen a lot in the market, that engineers are speaking to the people in the army who speak engineering language, and they understand each other. And they ask very specific questions about characteristics and this and that. Yes, when it comes to selling to military, there is also procurement and understanding of all the cycle and these issues. But these are the competences that you can acquire, meaning hire such a person for your team. Or on board as a co-founder, we also had several cases, because at the very beginning we were skeptical that the scientists who are like guarding their science, who have trust issues, like most of them, would welcome someone to the team to be the shareholder and to do the business development. But we have out of 40, I think, 5 very successful cases in this, when the founders actually met when the scientific founder already had a startup. Yes, there was some process, and yes, we were actively participating in this process and putting them together. We have like 7-month acceleration program, so to say, for the founders where we already invested. We call it MBA for scientific founders, where we explain them the business. So that's the process that works. But normally, in general, they do lack business development competences and understanding, like how the business work and how the market work. The good thing is that guys who are coming from the hard sciences, like physics, math, whatnot, they normally understand the number game and the number language. So basically, when you explain to them how the venture model works, they get it. And they're like, okay, so we need to get there and do this and this, right? Okay, we understand it. So you can work with them. Financing risk, as I mentioned, lower than these days. I have no idea what's going to be there in 5 years, but maybe even lower, comparing to regular tech startups, because there is a lot of non-dilutive financing on the market, especially in certain industries, but still high. Regulatory risk is very high. And the problem of the regulatory risk is basically, it's not that the regulations are going to change suddenly, because normally they're not changing suddenly. The problem is that it takes time. And when it comes to regulations, for example, even for the fintech, it might take up to like 18 months to get the license, depending on what type of license that they're getting. If we're talking about life sciences, CMARC certification, medical board approval, FDA, things like this, we can talk about like several years. If we add clinical trials, all this like animal trials before the human clinical trials and everything, we can talk about 5 years. And the main risk is that will they survive? Will they have money to sustain themselves and do these things for the 5 years? So regulatory risk is like very close to the financing risk. Competition risk for the deep tech startups is normally lower, and I'm going to show the competition slide because when it comes to the competition, you are not just comparing the companies that are already doing something on the market, you are looking at the scientific competition and competition of patents. But still, the competition risk is lower only because the entry barrier is super high. Look at the competition in the quantum computing space. I mean, the entry barrier is crazy high for both hardware and software. You can't just go and like, okay, now we did like this in quantum computing. It doesn't work like this. So comparing to, but you can also say like, oh, we'll do another marketplace. And IP risk, very high. One of the main problems, especially with the technology transfers and everything. So technical risk. How do you do this? Regular tech, people are building the marketplace, just make sure that marketplace works. Although it's not your main problem when it comes to investing into the regular tech startup. We had a case, I think it's our portfolio from 2018 maybe, like long ago. So we had the marketplace and with the pretty high tickets, still have they're doing good now. And since it was 2018, the guys who were building the business, they were actually coming from business. They were actually coming from the startups. What they didn't know how to code. And they didn't have a lot of money to kind of hire the programmer, so they hired some kind of student programmer. This guy created some ugly websites. It was like partially working, partially not working. However, while their programmer was creating some website, they figured how to serve their customers in the messengers. Like, because they caught the problem solution fits and the product market fits, that was exactly the case for their customers. So when they talked to the investors in 2018 and 19, the communication looked like this. Now they're past Series A already. Okay, so we looked at your website and your website isn't even working. Like, how are you trying to raise money? What are you trying to do? And they were like, yeah, our website isn't really working, but we have 25K in turnover this month. And investors like, we don't care about your ugly website. Tell us how you make money. So basically, that should be your moat when it comes to investing in regular tech startups. We don't care about your ugly product. If you have a product market fit, and if you earn money, and if you have scalability, and keep in mind that scalability looks very different these days, especially when it comes to AI and things like this. Because what is the scalability for the regular software? Super high, super low costs when it comes to the regular software. We're talking 2015, 2020, and very high markups. So essentially, like my software development costed me X money. My customer acquisition cost can be higher, can be lower, but I don't need to invest in COGS and cost of goods sold to scale the software. With AI, everything is changing. Why? Because the COGS are very high, the computing power. The COGS can be up to 60%. And if the startup is, for example, doing another like AI wrapper and relying on AI agents or relying on data, the costs of goods sold are going to be pretty high. Keep this in mind. So when you're looking at the how the startups are scaling these days, the scaling when it comes to the computing power and scaling when it comes to purchasing the data and working with the data is quite a factor. Coming back to this, a regular tech startup doesn't really have these risks. What you can do with the deep tech when you're assessing? Assess the competence of the lead investor. If it's a specialized deep tech funds and if they have like pretty good reputation, go with them. There are several cases. I think every Baltic bond did this case. When the angels, for some reason, invested in, so for LatBAN and LatBAN, it was life sciences startup, and for LatBAN, I think it was like some engineering deep tech startup. They invested in a certain startup that we rejected. And like I remember my analyst brought me the case and I said like, you see, they invested in them. And I was like, dude, what can I say? I mean, like it's their own problem. There are deep tech and life sciences funds on the market. All the pipeline of scientific startups go through us because like there is not that many of us, like all the startups come to us at the end of the day. Ask the venture funds, ask the specialist VC from Estonia, have we seen this startup? And if we did, why didn't we invest? We are not going to tell you all the like internal reasoning or something like this, but one thing that we are going to tell you, they didn't pass the technical due diligence or they didn't pass the scientific due diligence. And this is all you need to know, because if we rejected the startup because their technology doesn't work, it means that their technology doesn't work, and that's it. Also, the fund can, if you're co-investing with the fund, they would share the memo. If when you're not co-investing, they're not going to share their internal memo, but at least you will know your answer. We do this sometimes as well. I mean, we have like some friendly funds in Finland, in like Czech Republic, and sometimes we just kind of, if we see that, okay, this startup, probably they have seen them already, we just make a call and ask like the partner from another fund, have you talked to this startup? And why did you pass on them if you pass on them? If they say like we pass because it's too early for us or because we're not convinced about the market and everything, then we say like thank you, fine, we will consider the startup further because like it's our decision if we're early, it's our decision if like they fit the market. But if they say that they didn't pass the technical or scientific due diligence, it's an immediate goodbye. We are not going to double check. Because normally these funds, we invest a lot of money into this kind of expertise. We have an expert committee of the scientists from basically all over the globe, including NASA and everything. So if we pay this money to these people to do the assessment, and sometimes we pay twice because we need second opinion, because like the technical or scientific due diligence came back inconclusive, these things also happen. Ask us. Don't invest 1 million or 2 million in the startup that is not even technologically viable. And unfortunately, we see these cases. And if you see a very scientific case, like life sciences or something that is led by the regular tech VC, someone who normally invests in the marketplaces, ask the specialists, like specialist VCs on the market, what they think about it. This is how you're going not to lose money. And basically, if the fund is the startup, scientific startup is coming to you, you can always ask them, have you talked to the venture funds who invest in deep tech and life sciences in the region? What did they say? And if they say, oh, they passed on you, why did they pass on you? And ask the fund, of course. Market risk. This is which is way easier to check for the angels. What you need to understand, first of all, you need to define the market or markets, because the way how startups define the markets and the way how the market actually is very different. For example, we have one portfolio startup, also like very scientific, and they're operating in cancer treatment, and they're working with specific types of cancer. And when they were like pitching, like second time in their life, I think they just kind of Googled and they came and they said like, this size of the market is like 500 billion. We said like, yeah, really. We understand that you are a scientist, you are not coming from the financial side, but like for all the types of cancer or for this specific? And they said like, so we need to show only the market for this, types of cancer. I said like, yeah, you're only curing these types of cancer, so this is your market. So make sure when the startup is talking to you and they are doing some loyalty program for the employees, that they are not telling you that they're operating on the whole HR market, because they're not. They're operating on the markets of the loyalty programs. And also part of this market of the loyalty programs is not software that they are actually selling, but the turnover of the actual gifts that employees are getting, like in gift cards and so on, and you need to exclude this number because it's not an indicator of the size of the market. Key players on the market, so who are on the market, how do they influence the market, and what's the M&A potential of the market. And the next thing that you need to try to figure out how quickly this market is going to change. I don't know if someone read, there was the article of the economist who got the Nobel Prize this year about innovation and about how can certain changes on the market happen and how the bigger players, the stable players, are getting swept out of the market by the innovation and vice versa about the cycles. So what you need to understand, okay, then there is, for example, Booking.com at this market, and Booking.com is buying travel startups. And if you are thinking about this startup that in like 7 years they're going to sell their business to the Booking.com, 2 questions. Booking.com, are they going to be still in the market in 7 years? Second question, how the travel market can change their key players and what the key players, how they can influence the market, also from the regulatory perspective. What's involved, it's more related to the deep tech and life sciences startups because it's more related to the regulated markets. However, not always, because, for example, the Airbnb example, when in certain cities they banned Airbnb, in certain cities they banned Bolt or Uber. And we are talking about politics because we're talking about the labor markets, the reasons why they're being banned. You need to look at this type of things as well. But again, for some marketplace, probably you can take it easier. Or if you are looking especially at dual use or something like this, procurements, the way how the market is fragmented, how is the market feasible at all, what are the sales cycle to the military and something like this. And my advice, if you're going after the dual use, go with specialist funds only, because just don't go alone. Unless you are like, you spent like 20 years in military procurement and you know exactly how to do certain things. Cross-industry and cross-market application, pretty interesting thing when it comes to the size of the market. There are a lot of cases when the startup, both regular tech and deep tech, they're being used in one industry, but then they also see the niche of using this in another industry or in the bigger market. The example from the regular tech, so that portfolio company that I mentioned from 2018, they were first serving the markets of the skippers, the sea captains who have the license to go somewhere with the yachts. But then they figured how through them to go to the markets of the like regular tourists who want to spend like a week on the yacht or something like this. The difference between 2 markets is like X30. The market of captains is like obviously smaller. The touristic market that are spending their holidays on the yachts is 30 times bigger. So sometimes this cross-industry, cross-market application is your path to exit and how it can actually make sense. But you need to understand it from the very beginning. Is it there or is it not? Because in deep tech, it's even more feasible in terms of that there might be the technology that could be used at the same time in military, in agro-tech, in Industry 4.0 and something else. So that's what you should be looking for. This one about the demand formation, mostly for, again, deep tech and like dual use and sovereign tech. But still you need to understand how the market shifts are happening. And for B2B SaaS, who is the budget owner? And who actually pays when it comes to the companies, and what is the buying process? Because a lot of B2B SaaS startups are saying that, oh, we are going to sell to this and that company. We are going to sell to, I don't know, the banks, the kindergartens. Who owns the budget and who makes the decision? Because in many cases, it can be 2 different people. We have one portfolio company that is doing the cloud optimization. And in their case, the decision makers in their like corporate customers are the CTOs and technical people. Because the people who have the budget, they don't even understand what those CTOs are buying. So basically those CTOs need to talk to the startup, and then they need to go to their managers and tell them, okay, we want to buy this or that thing. Why is it important? simply because if the startup is telling you, oh, we will hire like 3 sales managers and they're going to sell to all these companies and everything is going to be okay, it's not going to be okay. In their case, what they figured, that the sales managers, regular sales managers, even like with some good experience, actually don't make sense. They need to hire the programmers, the engineers, the technical people to sell to the CTOs, because CTOs speak technical language. They don't care about the fancy sales managers and presentations. So this is what they need to understand. And from the way how they're answering the questions, you can actually understand if they understand their market and if they understand their market risk. Team risk. That's the favorite thing. So first of all, try to understand one thing about the coachability of the startup founder. If the startup founder is even listening to you, why I'm saying good asshole and bad asshole, like sometimes in certain industries, the startup founders who has kind of had certain achievements in their lives and everything, they are actually assholes. And sometimes they are not the nicest people to work with. But the question is this person coachable? Would this person listen? And can I build normal relationship with this person? And if those guys are playing their ego games, it's fine, because you want like startup founders to have a bit of an ego, you know, in certain industries and to do certain things. But the question is this ego going to destroy the startup? Or is this ego going to drive the startup founder all the way to the top? This is something that you can assess from the conversation. And the coachability is also something that you can assess from the conversation, actually. Because if you see that the person like is not listening and very much full of themselves, as an angel investor, you're going to stay with the startup founder from 5 to 10 years. I mean, statistically, the average marriage is 7 years. I'm not quite sure you want to be in this for 10 years with an asshole startup founders. Believe me, it's hard. I've been there. So probably you should reconsider. And also you can divorce your wife, try to divorce your startup founder. I mean, it's impossible. Next one, soft skills assessment. For both regular tech and deep tech, less critical for deep tech, because like when you are looking at those founders, you can just, you know, understand that they don't have soft skills. That's fine. They can't talk to people. We have a lot of great stories about our startup founders. You know, like we actually were thinking about creating this kind of community which would be called Deep Tech Investors Anonymous. When we will, you know, sit like around some, I don't know, table and say like, my name is Sandra, I'm a deep tech investor, and then we'll hug and cry because like our founders are something else like normally. I need to wake people up. So 2 stories about our startup founders. One of our startup founders, he has 2 PhDs, he's a brilliant mathematician and everything, great scientist, great guy, and in his like 50s, maybe like a little bit older, and he's coming to the Startup Investor Conference to Tactile for the first time, because before this he only had been at the scientific conferences in his life, and here is Startup Investor Conference, and he's so excited, like investors, they give money to startups, and he's like figuring out, oh, okay, this is the investor, because he sees the badge. So he comes to this managing director of the venture funds, he grabs her by the hand and he says like, do you want to talk to me about physics? And she's like, no, I don't really understand physics. And he said like, but that's fine. I'm the PhD in physics. I'm going to explain it to you. And I'm like, and I saw this, it was one of our portfolio founders. And I was like, first of all, let her go. Secondly, no one wants to talk to you about physics here. It's investors. They're not talking about physics. They're talking about money. So that would be the type of the founders you would be dealing with. The second best case was, so we had a founder who decided to pitch his kind of defense capabilities of his startup. And he's also like purely scientist. So he was thinking how to explain like the problem to the people. And he figured out the solution. So imagine like the audience like this. He's coming to the stage wearing a Superman short, and he's like bald and very short and Irish, having something in his hand, and he's doing like this. Do you know what it is? It is a landmine. And they was also like, what the So like, don't worry, it's not gonna detonate. And everyone is like, so yeah, so this is like the type of the people you're dealing with. So soft skills assessments, if they have some soft skills, that's great. In when it comes to deep tech, yeah, at least like kind of some. If they don't, it's also great. I mean, like you have to be able to negotiate with them, and you have to be able to coach them, and they have to trust you. If we're talking about the scientific founders. If they trust you, you would be able to build these bridges, and you would be able to help them with the soft skills, bring in someone with the soft skills. Big vision and ownership. This is super important. This is the most important things. When they see where this thing is going to be like in 10 years. Both for deep tech and like regular tech startups, so what is their like vision, what is their ambition? Because in very many cases, when you ask them about the big vision is not about the product. Big vision is how the world would look like if your product would solve the problem and the problem wouldn't exist anymore. So what is the big thing that you are solving? Like, what is the big shift that you're making in the world? Because if you want to make like an exit from 1 billion, there should be some big shift. And if the founders have this vision, and they're going through this vision, it's one thing. If the founder said like, yeah, you know, like in 3 years, maybe we are going to have like 5 million in revenue because we're doing B2B SaaS. The problem with the lack of this big vision is that when there will be the shifts in the industry, and there will be the shifts in the industry. And the current shift of the LLMs is not the last shift that is going to happen. If they have the vision, they are going to pivot all the time. So the product is going to go after the vision, not vice versa. If they have the product mindset, they will, oops, no one is using our product anymore. And yeah, probably we should close our startup. So this, and the team cohesiveness. When I say team cohesiveness, I mean to what extent basically they make each other better. And you can see it when you talk to them, like the whole team. It's pretty easy to spot, first of all, how they talk. Because like if you see the team of like 3 founders and 1 founder is talking 90% of the time, either he's doing a workshop or something is wrong with the team. Also, how do they kind of, you know, if you, again, come into the, you know, human example, if you have seen the couples who are like, who have some like harmony between them and they're finishing each other words and everything, it might be the same thing with the startup founders when they know each other and when they understand how to drive each other. And there might be the team when you don't even understand what these 2 people are doing together. So that is important. Background check, super important. You can find some really, really nasty things. First of all, never trust founders. Secondly, look at their network. Google their names in different languages in different countries. That's my recommendation. We found like a lot of interesting things. You need to understand their previous experience, but not like just going through their LinkedIn. Make a couple of calls. Ask their like, or just write some messages on LinkedIn to some people they previously worked with. You need to have at least 2 opinions because, like, I mean, we all have enemies and we all have friends, and someone can be, I hate this person, he's this and that, you know. But if you are getting like all the red flags from the people you asked about this founder, that's negative. If you ask the founder, look, do I mind if I do the background check? I would like to talk to your previous coworkers. I would like to talk to, I don't know, your previous co-founders and something. If the founder says like, no, 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 don't talk to them, no, I'm not going to give you the contacts, it's a red flag. Venture grade ambition. Venture grade means that they understand that they need to get to 1 billion. So my favorite test is this. So the founders imagine that they're like trying to do something and everything, and ask this question. I said like, look, okay, let's imagine right here, right now, because I know that you are struggling with your startups and fundraising, you know, I give you $1 million. It's not an investment in your startup. Spend it wherever you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, go get some education. Go do some like charity work. Do whatever. Like, you get 1 million and you get a year to spend it. What do you do? Every single founder who would tell you that they would get an extra education or do something else, you don't invest in them. Only the founders who will say like, I'm investing this 1 million in my startup now and I'm going to do this and that and everything. That's the ambition, that's one. And secondly, the test that we are doing with the founders, also a funny one. When we start with the new group of founders, we're also asking them the question, out of you founders, who is an investor? Because unless the founders understand that they're the biggest investors in their own business, they invest their life in their own business. And they will be continuing to invest in their life in their own business in the next 10 years. And their life is going to be pretty miserable because being a startup founder is no fun. Unless they understand this and they're ready for this, and that's the resilience thing, you just don't invest in them. Because if something will be like really hard, they will say like, at least we tried, and you're losing your money as an investor. And what's interesting when it comes to resilience, statistically, at least like with our internal statistics, it works way better with the deep tech and scientific founders, I think, because like scientists are used to the hardships or something, I don't know. But they are way more resilient than the regular founders. They're like, whatever, like 100 of experiments failed, 100 investors said, no, we are going to try like 121st investor or something like this. What is their role coverage? So what are the holes in their team? And if there are holes in their teams, they need to hire someone. So who are they planning to hire when they're planning to hire these people? This one we normally use, it's US Marine Navy methodology. We normally use it for specific like deep tech teams. Essentially, the best officer to do the job, we call it, or we're using Christmas tree. If we would figuring out if is this founder the best founder to do this specific startup, or what would be the ideal founder to do this specific startup? What qualities would ideal founder have to do this specific startup, and what qualities this specific person is lacking? Values, it's important. Again, remember that you are married to your founder. And you are going to spend 10 years together, especially if you're investing in defense or something like this. And this one is normally a problem for the deep tech startups when it comes to IP and when it comes to time allocation. Because what might be happening in the deep tech startups that some of the founders would be working part-time. I mean, in very early stage, regular tech startups, it also happens that sometimes they work part-time and at the same time they're trying to do their business just because they like money, but normally when they get the full investment, they are getting into the full-time roles. In deep tech startups, some of those founders might be also in active academia. They might have their cadences as professors or something like this, and they're not going to step down. It's fine. It's okay if they can allocate enough time, like in scientific resources for the startups, and in some cases it's also really good because like we want certain person to be like on the verge of science and doing certain things, but you need to check all these things and you need to understand like is it okay or not.
Do you have some metrics to assess how big is a vision, or this is like subjective? Because I guess for you,
that is big.
For you it could be big for the. Not so big.
No. I mean, first of all, it has to do with the personality of the founder. But vision is not like the size of the market; it's different. Because if we are talking about the market size, it's just like the common rule for the venture capital that we don't invest in markets that are less than 20 billion. Because it doesn't make sense. Unless the market is 20 billion now, but the market is projected to be 200 billion in the 10 years, for example. If we're talking about specific types of quantum computing software, we understand that market size for this type of software is not like huge at the moment. It's probably like 15 billion or something like this. But we also understand that in the duration of 7 years, it's going to explode. So we just come to this market early. But the size of the market and the size of the vision are a little bit different things. So the founder should be like seeing the problem that the founder is solving. He should be basically seeing it as the world-changing problem, his world, like the one that is happening in his head, because like The most resilient founders in this case are the founders who have something personal when it comes to the problem. So the problem is for some reason personal for the founder. With this yachting guys, they are both like skippers and sea captains, and they got scammed with the refundable deposits. So they started solving the problem of the industry because it was their problem as well. With like people in like science, very often, or for example, like in cancer treatment, very often the problem is personal. Like someone died and they decided to dedicate their life to this or something. Same very often for defense or something else. So, and if they see like how the world is going to change in 10 years, and even if the conditions on the market is going to change or something, they will still be solving this problem, but in a different way. Because the product is a tool. The product is not the solution. They need to have this big vision. Financing risk. So, what you need to understand is maximum or minimum fund of the round, because the fund size of the round, because the size of the round can be changing. It's not something that is carved in stone. And very often, while the founders are going through the fundraising process, they might decide to raise less money, they might decide to raise more money. So you need to understand their range. And actually, when the founders are giving you the cap, it's fine when they're saying, yeah, we might, for example, increase the round, but we won't go over X, like never, because we are mindful about our cap table. You need to understand with the certain, especially scientific founders, they don't understand like things about valuation and ownership of the shares and everything at all. So you'll meet two types of the deep tech founders. I mean, there are like two edge cases. There is also something in the middle. The type of the founders who would say, no, investors can't take the equity in my company. But how are you going to get the investors? Well, they just give me money because they're very much used to grants. So like equity in my company, no, never. And the other type of the scientific founders who will say like, I think to give 40% to investors at the pre-seed is fine. Why not? They are giving me money. So, and you need to manage both things as an angel investor. Don't get into the rounds that's, especially at the early stage, takes more than 20% of the equity from the founders. There might be ideally 10, but like in pre-seed, we had several situations when the first pre-seed round, pre-revenue, pre-product was, for example, 2.5 or 3 million. And yes, like the founders kind of gave to investors like 20% of equity, but we realized that, for example, this financing is being combined with the grant financing, and it will take them probably even post-Series seed because they won't need Series seed. But if you see the deal where the investors are getting like 30 or 40% of the equity instead of, being happy that you're going to get so much equity, run away from this deal. This company is uninvestable. For the further financing. Also, when it comes to the co-financing feasibility, so some startup founders are going to come to you and say like, oh, we are talking to this and that funds. Always check these things. And as an angel investor, you can always make it conditional. You can say, okay, if this fund is investing, fine, come to me with the term sheets from this fund, I'll join their investment agreements. I don't need to do any legal myself. And this is how you will know if they are actually joining or not. And normally, apart from very rare cases, I mean, this should be, I don't know what type of... Okay, if, for example, we had a case like this once when the angel was, she was the well-known like pharma executive who exited with the 2 billion. She was like the very known name. And she had the smallest ticket in the round, but she was leading the rounds. Normally, the angels don't lead the rounds. So unless there is like a group of angels that is investing like, for example, 800K, and then there is like a fund that is investing 200, then the group of angels and the lead angel might lead the rounds. But they normally prefer the funds to do this. Why do they prefer the funds to do this? First thing, the person or the company that leads the round, they're doing all the legal. Angels don't want to take the legal expenses, so you are going under the agreements of the funds. Secondly, because all the due diligence and all the other things is falling on the investor who is leading the round. So if you're talking to the angel and so you're talking to the startup and the startup says like, oh, can you lead my round as an angel? Don't. Something really bad is happening with the startup if they can't get other investors to lead the rounds. Always look at the non-dilutive financing for the deep tech startups, deep tech life sciences defense, because these guys, they don't understand sometimes the difference between dilutive and non-dilutive. And how we are trying to put together all the funding rounds for the deep tech startups that we invest in is we are trying to find the grant possibilities and do the some match with the venture investment and non-dilutive grants. In Latvia, those grants are in place. In Estonia, Finland, those grants are in place. Sometimes these grants give up to 70% of money out of the whole round for R&D. Don't fund heavy R&D from the venture money, or for example, the lab or things like this. Because they will never have enough money to finish this thing. So you need to always look at this combination. If they can't get a single grant, something is wrong with the startup. Deep tech and life sciences startups are normally able to get the non-dilutive financing. Understand the geography for their financing rounds. It's very important because why do I say geography? For example, you invest in a Latvian startup and it's a Latvian startup in quantum computing. I know 2 funds in the region, including us, who invest in quantum at the very early stages. So if they would be trying to raise the next round, they just won't find the fund who will invest in quantum computing. So they would need to go to, for example, UK or like Germany or somewhere else. Are they ready to do this? Would they be able to raise at that market? That's the question. You need to understand the venture risks of the startups, the things that we talked about from the venture fund perspective. So if you're looking at them as an angel, also try to look at them as a venture fund. Because your question that should pop up, okay, will the funds even invest in them? Are they investable for the funds or are they not? Runway after the financing, that's pretty clear, like revenue path, all the financial projections. Milestones 30, 90, 180. We are normally doing this for the scientific startups and for deep tech because they need to figure out how to do the operational planning together, like with everything else. With the regular tech startups, it's up to you if to do it or not. What you need to, if they've ever raised, look at how they use the funds. And when they build their financial projections, or for example, if they have the past history with the funds that they raised or invested themselves, and they have the continuation with the financial projections, look if there is a consistency between how they are going to use the fund. Because if they are, for example, saying, oh, this founder's fund we were using for this and that, but now the investors fund came in and we are going to use like 80% of these funds for the marketing. Well, if marketing is so important for you, why didn't you use the previous fund for the marketing? Something is wrong here. So if they're consistently using like the funds, I mean, the same ratio, the same everything, okay, it makes sense. It might be the situation when they were like in the phase when they didn't have anything to market, they were building the product. But then again, if you are like in regular tech, beware of the startup who is like in the current market condition is building the product for 2 years, if they're building the marketplace. And also something happened on the slides, good financial management practices. So make sure that they understand how to prioritize things and how to spend and not how to not spend money. Regulatory risk. The industries that are unregulated, there is practically no risk. So like it's not a problem for you at all. Regulated industries. Of course, the startup will tell you, oh, we are going to get the CE mark certification in 3 to 6 months or something like this. 2 things that you can do. If you have the lead investor like in the round, talk to the lead investor, ask them for the memo about the regulation. They highly likely have it. If you are investing and like no one actually knows something about the regulated industry, talk to the startup that recently got this type of the, like for example, CE mark certification that is similar. For example, that would be a similar grade. If they say like we are going after grade 2 CE mark, okay, talk to another startup who did it and ask them how much did it cost them and how long did it take them. And you'll have the whole picture, because if they're saying like, oh, it will take us 3 months and cost us 50K, no, it won't. It's not how the market works. Also, when it comes to the regulated industries, it might be a threat for the startup, but it might be an amazing and very competitive advantage. A couple of years ago, the regulations don't come out of nowhere. Normally there is like a certain work of the regulatory bodies, and they announce that they're going to have these regulations in place in like 16 months, in like 18 months, at some point. One of our portfolio startups, they knew about the regulation that the drones that are used for the military in Europe, they will be restricted to using any Chinese parts. So 2 years ago, they started building the hydrogen drone ecosystem where they use 0 Chinese parts. And of course, when the regulation finally came at work and started working for the military, part of their competitors, they had to rebuild something, they had to rebuild their processes because they were all using Chinese parts. And they were just, here, we are ready to go. We can go through any procurement, we don't use anything. So sometimes regulation can be an enabler. And also think about this. But sometimes the regulation can kill the startup, not because they're going to be fined or something like this, just because it will take them a lot of time to get to the place where they, for example, will get the FDA approval. Competition risk. 2 types of competitions that you are looking at. So in the regular tech, you're looking at the market competition or solution problem competition and direct competitors. In deep tech, you're also looking at the scientific and engineering competition, and sometimes it's more important than the market competition. I can give you an example. We have one portfolio of startups in the Netherlands. I think that they are doing certain things with the enzymes. And the first market that they are starting with is the market of the car tires, because like these enzymes are used, they're like in a certain way, and then they're going to 3 completely different markets. So when it comes to market competition, I mean, what they're doing, it can be used, it's new materials, and they can be used in medtech, in industry, in this and that. So it's hard to say who is their market competition, But when we look at the scientific competition, yes, there are certain scientific and engineering teams who are working with the same type of enzymes for like certain things. So market competition in that sense doesn't really matter to us, but scientific competition matters. Also, the scientific competitions and patent competitions is the thing. For the like regular tech startup, basically 2 things that you need to understand: who is on the market now and why they are competing with them and how, because like what's their competitive mode and everything. And the second question, how their competition is going to look like in 5 years. Because if you remember, there is a startup, Grammarly, and 5 years ago they would never say that their main competition on the market and the thing that is going to kill them is going to be ChatGPT, not another app that is checking the grammar. And with the development of the market, these types of shifts are going to, and the cycles are going to get shorter, shorter, and shorter. So you need to watch and in general understand, okay, what might be happening on the market? Okay, if there is like a killer technology like this or killer technology like this, how is it going to affect this specific startup? When you are looking at deep tech again, you need to look at the strengths of the technology and the strengths of the IP. So basically, sometimes scientists invent just for the sake of science. So the question is it the science that is improving something by 10%, or is it the science that is improving something or cutting costs by 90%? Is it going to change the market, or is it just going to be like another scientific method that is out there? So this is where you need to look at. Buy alternatives is mostly for the regular tech market. So basically, if they're claiming that they are trying to sell to, for example, the companies, the question is, what are the switching costs? The companies are already using certain enterprise software. If they need to switch from this enterprise software to their software, what is the price of a switching cost comparing to doing nothing? If they will save like 10%, probably they won't switch. If they're going to save like 60%, probably they're going to switch. And of course, when it comes to defense, you need to also understand how the landscape looks like in terms of potential partners, potential primes, licensing, and everything. IP risk. Regular attack, just make sure that IP belongs to the company. For example, if an employee is writing some code for this company, make sure that all the code that employee wrote belongs to the company and is reflected in their employment agreements. If it's deep tech and you are not an IP lawyer, don't even try. Just ask for the lead investor for the memo, because there are a lot of, first of all, in general, in Baltics and partially Nordics, when it comes to patents and everything, especially like filing the patents in US, different types of patents, there are not a lot of lawyers who are actually really qualified in this. Sorry for this, but like it's the market truth. Normally, the funds that are dealing with intellectual property, and especially with the filing of the certain patents and everything, first of all, it's like 5 funds in the market. Secondly, they would be the ones who would understand all the problems of the IP way better than the lawyers. So talk to professionals, don't try to get there, because there are a lot of nuances, and in most of the cases, what you should avoid 100%, and I meet a lot of deep tech startups like this who would say, oh, I have the lawyers, and because government gave me money to file my IP, so I filed the patent in Latvia. Okay, you protected your amazing tech at the Latvian markets. Now you have 0 competitors in the Latvian markets, and the whole other world can use your tech because you just expose your technology. So avoid things like this and talk to professionals about the IP. And that's it. I know that you were trying to get rid of me.